I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. Pope Francis has criticised the exploitation of Africa's natural resources by wealthy countries. He's on the first papal visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo for nearly 40 years. It has some of the world's richest deposits of valuable minerals. Our correspondent Ali Maqbool is travelling with the Pope.
Shortly after landing in Kinshasa, Pope Francis delivered a speech full of stinging condemnation of the exploitation over centuries, not just of this country, but also the continent. He talked of political colonialism giving way to economic colonialism, which he said was equally damaging. In the best-received section of the speech, he told the outside world, hands off the Democratic Republic of Congo, hands off Africa, saying it wasn't a mine to be stripped.
The Biden administration has expressed outrage over record annual profits posted by the US oil giant ExxonMobil. Its net profit last year was over $55 billion. It's an historic high for a Western oil firm, driven by soaring prices caused by the war in Ukraine. The Republican Congressman George Santos has said he'll step down from serving on committees in the US House of Representatives. Mr. Santos was elected as a representative for New York in November. He's faced growing calls to resign after he admitted making up parts of his CV and biography. More from Anthony Zerka in Washington.
I think the strategy here is obvious. He had a meeting with House Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy yesterday. All of the Republicans in the House of Representatives are constantly asked about George Santos, and I think they think that if he can step aside for a little while, maybe it'll buy Republicans some time. But the reality is that they still need his vote. He's not stepping aside from casting a ballot on the House of Representatives on key issues that Republicans want to pass, and it's because it's such a narrow Republican majority there that they can't afford to lose his vote for any period of time.
The Hollywood actor Alec Baldwin has been formally charged with involuntary manslaughter after the fatal shooting of a cinematographer on a film set. Helena Hutchins was shot while filming the Western movie Rust in New Mexico in 2021. Here's Sophie Long in Los Angeles.
We've got quite a lot of detail coming out in this, but what it basically says in the statement of probable cause is that Alec Baldwin had not been properly trained ahead of the filming. That actual training consisted of just 30 minutes, and during that training he'd been distracted and talking on the phone to his family. Now, also, what's being alleged is that he had initially said that he fired the gun in the immediate aftermath of this tragedy. That later changed, and he said that he never fired the gun and it must have misfired. Well, part of the detail here is that the actual gun involved was taken to the FBI, and they've said that it wasn't a malfunctioning gun. It couldn't have misfired.
World News from the BBC. Hundreds of tech industry workers in more than a dozen cities across Israel have protested against government plans to limit the powers of the country's courts. They fear the new right-wing coalition's planned legal overhaul would destroy democracy and deter foreign investment in Israeli tech firms. The US Secretary of State has described the expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank as an obstacle to peace. Antony Blinken was speaking after holding talks with the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah. He said he opposed any action that jeopardized a two-state solution to the conflict. Yolande Knell reports.
Antony Blinken has restated a commitment to the two-state solution, but his visit's been overshadowed by violence. An Israeli military raid in Jenin last week was one of the deadliest in years. 10 people were killed, mostly armed fighters, but also 2 civilians. A day later, a Palestinian gunman killed 7 Israelis near a synagogue in East Jerusalem, the worst such attack in recent memory. Mr. Blinken's called on both sides to restore calm, but today he also acknowledged Palestinian despair.
The United States has charged 4 more men with involvement in the assassination of Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse 2 years ago. The suspects were arrested in Haiti and transferred to prison in Florida. 3 of them have dual Haitian-American citizenship. The other is a retired Colombian colonel. Police in the US city of Dallas have released a photo of a man they want to speak to after the suspicious disappearance of 2 tamarin monkeys from the city zoo. Staff said it was clear that their habitat was intentionally compromised. 3 weeks ago, a leopard escaped through a hole that was cut in its fence. On the same day, an enclosure for langur monkeys was cut open, but none of them escaped. It's not clear if the incidents are linked. And that's the BBC News.